Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today it is finally time to preview the Stanley Cup Finals between the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Make sure that you hit subscribe down below, hit the bell notification because we're going to be coming at you live as we get deeper into the Stanley Cup Finals. You never know, the farther we go in this, the more work that we're going to have to do to cover all the bases here and give you what you need to know surrounding each game of the Stanley Cup Finals. You don't want to miss that at all. And while you're here, make sure you drop a comment, like, subscribe, all algorithm things, hit the bell, I'm bad at these things. Anyway, moving right along, make sure you check out our website as well. You can check out our content there as well as the rest of our content at i80sports.com. And while we're even talking about it, you can check out our other content. The NBA guys have been hard at work covering the NBA finals as well, if you're a fan of that. And we also have our NFL, MLS, NCAA football, and wrestling crew as well that puts in the work day after day, so you definitely want to give some love to them too. While you're there, hit up the shop, get yourself a t-shirt as low as $8. And if you're on Twitter and you don't currently follow us, make sure you follow us down below at I80_sports NHL. And if you do follow us already, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. But away we go. It's time to preview the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing well, and here we are, game one of the finals. I predicted that this would be the final. I think a lot of people did too, and this is a very good matchup. You don't normally get these. Normally with Stanley Cup Finals, you get like a number one, a high seed versus a Cinderella team or a mid seed. You normally don't get like the two best teams in the conference. Maybe it has the potential to be the best finals since Chicago and Boston way back in 2013, almost 10 years ago now. I can't even believe that.
This could potentially be a very, very entertaining final. And needless to say, I am, dressed for the occasion as well. We can all tell who I'm currently rooting for in the Stanley Cup Finals. I hope you guys are too, because look, as cool as three-peats are in Tampa Bay's case, you got to love the Colorado Avalanche here, just to be honest. And that's just foreshadowing for my thoughts later on. But that's besides the point. Before we talk about the Stanley Cup Finals, we should review a little bit about what happened in the conference finals. How did we get here, to say the least? So let's review a little bit of that right now. So in the Eastern Conference Finals, we had Tom's own New York Rangers facing off against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Rangers put in the best work that they possibly could. But alas, they just could not overtake the reigning, defending Stanley Cup champions. The Tampa Bay Lightning moved on to the Stanley Cup Finals in that series, advancing 4-2. They took it to Game 6 and took it away. And on the Western Conference side of things, well, the Avalanche had a little bit of an easier route, to say the least, because the Avalanche swept the Edmonton Oilers in 4 games played. And it was a great series. It was a very entertaining series, to say the least. It's not like Edmonton certainly didn't try. I mean, game 1, the score was 8-6. It was a bananas type of game. After that, Avalanche 4-0, Avalanche 4-2. And then the Oilers did try to go out with a bang and left with a whisper. Avalanche won that game in overtime to go to the Stanley Cup Finals 6-5. Great series all around. Tom, what were your thoughts on the conference finals? Was there a conference final matchup that stuck out more to you, that was more entertaining to you? And let me guess, it's going to be the Rangers series.
I mean, it was entertaining, but I mean, as a Ranger fan, you sit there and you think that they're still a young, upcoming, growing team. There wasn't a lot of deep playoff experience on that team outside of guys like maybe Chris Kreider, who had been to the finals with the Rangers last time they were there in 2014. Guys like Barclay Goodrow, who played for Tampa and was on Tampa the last 2 times they won. You had some other guys thrown in there. Jacob Trouba had been on a few runs with Winnipeg as well. But you want to know what? It shocked me more that they went up 2-0 than it shocked me that they lost the series in 6. I thought that they would lose in 6. I didn't think they were going to go up 2 and then lose 4 straight. But, you want to know what? The cracks started showing as early as the end of game 2. The Rangers were cruising 3-1 in the third period. Tampa started bringing it on in game 2, but I said to myself, you know what? They're just weathering the storm. Tampa's nervous. They want to get back into this. They walked out of there with a 3-2 win, up 2-0. But I just remember in game 3, I watched them, and the Rangers just didn't look good. And they didn't look good the rest of the series. And people can go on and on and on about that 2-0 lead. That 2-0 lead was a result of 2 power play goals. And you can say what you will. First of all, the game itself was not a good game. If you were an outsider watching that game, it was very sloppy, just not good hockey. No flow, nothing good. The puck was bouncing all over the place. And I'll tell you straight out, the Rangers in game 3 did not look good. Even though they were up 2-0, they did not look good. And that was the real turning point, They brought it on a little bit at the end of game 4 when they really had nothing to play for, Game 5 was a back and forth affair. And, game 6, the Vetrano goal gave me a little bit of hope. But at the end of the day, you're a young team that this group's first playoffs together. It's not like they had made the playoffs the year before that or the year before that. I don't count the play-in round as the playoffs, and they went as a run. It was this group's first time in the playoffs together against a team that just won 2 Stanley Cups in a row. People can cry all they want. Ranger fans can cry all they want, but you know what? You just don't make the playoffs with no experience and just march to a Stanley Cup. It happened one time. And I don't even count St. Louis in 19, and I don't count Carolina in 06. What happened with Pittsburgh in 91, and they just happened to have every conceivable break you could think of go their way that year. But it just doesn't happen that way. But I'll tell you what, man. Somebody on the radio a few weeks ago compared the Rangers to the Blackhawks before they started winning their championships. And I remember in 09, the Blackhawks, same thing. First time together as a group going into the playoffs. Marched all the way to the Western Conference Finals before they lost to the Detroit Red Wings, who were defending Stanley Cup champions trying to win a second straight cup. Obviously, it didn't happen that year. Pittsburgh beat them. Besides the point. But you want to know what? A run to the conference finals is the best thing for this group. Young group of kids. Now, like your young kids like Lafreniere, like Hedl, like Fox, like Kakko, you name them. All of them. Miller, Igor Shesterkin. Now they have this experience under their belt. And when they do have to bring in new kids next year, because they're going to have – obviously, Kravtsov is signed already. And Brennan Othman, who they drafted last year, had a great year in the OHL. You can't send Brennan Othman back to the OHL next year as a 20-year-old. Now, you ask me why. Yeah, he'll go back and dominate. But if you're a 20-year-old dominating Canadian junior hockey, you're really wasting a year of development, and you're wasting a year of professional hockey. I don't even care if he plays fourth line next year and is in and out of the lineup. He's going to have to be there next year, too. So now those two guys can come in, and these younger guys now have the experience of going deep into the playoffs. So, I'm upset that they lost. But I'll tell you what, there's been Rangers playoff losses that have stung a hell of a lot more than this one. They really have.
Yeah, because to be honest, if there is one thing that I think you failed to mention that was a disappointment for the Rangers, which don't get me wrong, I am not disappointed with how the New York Rangers did. Listen to me, I'm a New Jersey Devils fan. I think a lot of you guys know that. But I'm also non-biased, and I can appreciate just how well the New York Rangers have built their team and how the organization has rebuilt this team in such a short span of time. And there's a lot to appreciate with that. But there comes a point where you need to run with your brung. And the biggest problem that I had with Game 6 with Gerard Gallant, the head coach of the New York Rangers, with his decision-making, I had a real problem with him scratching Kaapo Kakko that night. It made no sense then. It makes no sense now. The kid line of Alexis Lafreniere, Philip Hedl, and Kaapo Kakko were very productive throughout the past 2 rounds. They really clicked and got it together, and they were a spark for the New York Rangers. I did not understand why Gerard Gallant would scratch Kaapo Kakko in a pivotal Game 6 where you really need to turn the tide. And this is a line that really knew how to turn the tide in games. They did it time and time again in this series, in the previous series, in the Penguins series. It made no sense to me why Gerard Gallant did that. And Gerard Gallant hemmed and hawed, said it was a personal decision. It was, this and that. We were trying to win a hockey game. yeah, you're trying to win a hockey game, but why are you putting yourself at a disadvantage by not playing one of your more productive players in that game? And especially with Capo Caco being the age that he is, this is experience that this kid needs. And this is a kid that, you hope that you don't lose to an offer sheet in the offseason. He's a restricted free agent. I doubt that it happens. I doubt that the Rangers would very easily let Capo Caco slip from under their fingers. But truth be told, man, if a team is crazy enough to offer him a deal that the Rangers, that it's just too rich for the Rangers' blood, it could happen. Weirder things have happened. I hope that this isn't a move that the Rangers will ultimately regret later on. There's rumors saying that there was something that happened, that it could have been a disciplinary issue in Capo Caco, but I don't know if I buy that because we haven't heard anything else regarding that. So it sounds like it was just a coaching decision here. And if that's the case, I don't think that's a good move. Otherwise, I was really, really happy with how the Rangers did perform. Just in general, Artemi Panarin came to play. Mika Zibanejad came alive in the past two series. He was one of the more productive players in the past two rounds in general. He ends this series with 24 points, 10 goals, 14 assists. There's not much more you can say about that. Mika Zibanejad kind of hushed a lot of the haters out there, and I don't know why he has haters, to be honest, because he's a top 10 center in this league. And that might be a hot take. He's a top 10 center in this league, whether you like it or not.
He's a top 10 forward overall.
He could be a top 10 forward overall, especially when he's on.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him top 5, but I think definitely top 10.
Easily. But nothing for the Rangers to hang their head on. This is a team that is going to be going on deep playoff runs for the next few years at the very least. They've got a young core in place that's going to keep growing together. All circled around Alexis Lafreniere, Capo Caco, Keandre Miller, Adam Fox, Igor Shesterkin. They've got a really good core in place. And when you also have that centered around Chris Kreider, Artemi Panarin, and Mika Zibanejad, this team is going to do damage. And who knows, maybe it could result in the Stanley Cup championship within the next few years. We'll have to see. I mean, then again, the Devils fan in me says 94, nevermore, but that's just me. Tom, just real quick, I just wanted to ask your quick thoughts on the Edmonton, Colorado series. Anything you want to say about that series before we turn away from it?
You know what? I predicted Colorado in 5. I'm not going to beat around the bush on that one. I really I'm kind of not surprised with this. I'm kind of not surprised. I watched Edmonton and how they won games all the entire postseason. They didn't really have much D. They didn't really have much depth. They put the games on the shoulders of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Draisaitl was playing injured all playoffs, and Colorado just ate him up. I mean, also experience plays a part. Obviously, Colorado, they haven't won anything yet, but Colorado's made it to round 2 of the playoffs over the last few years. And, sometimes there's always that roadblock that you hit. You know what I'm saying? It's like you always get there. It's almost like the Capitals. If you look at it, when they had Ovechkin, it was okay. They can never get past the second round. They can never get past the second round until they did. It's the same thing with Colorado the last few years. They're never going to get past the second round. They're never going to get past the second round until they did. Now they got past the second round. And you know what? Edmonton was prime. They were primed and ready to beat Edmonton. They had the speed. They had the depth. They had the better goaltending. They had the better defensive core. But I think a lot of people were saying, since Connor McDavid is such a better player than Nathan McKinnon, that's going to factor into the series. And maybe Connor McDavid, just on his own will and talent, will win them the series. And that's respectable. I can agree with that. I watch Connor McDavid a lot, and I'm sure all of you do. I'm sure you do, Brian. I'm sure everybody who listens to and watches us does. I'm not going to sit here and say that Connor McDavid is not the best player in hockey. He's got the speed. He's got the size. He's got the hands. He's got the shot. Nathan McKinnon has all of that too, just a little bit lesser than Connor McDavid. But one thing McKinnon does have that I think he has more than McDavid is the hockey IQ. I think Nathan McKinnon is a smarter hockey player than Connor McDavid. And I only think Connor McDavid doesn't have to be that smart just because he doesn't have to, because he has talent. He has the talent, so the talent doesn't need to equal the smarts. McKinnon, I watch him. I watch how he creates space. I watch how he creates open ice. I watch how he shoots. I watch how he passes. He's so smart. People compare Gretzky and Lemieux and the like. I think McDavid reminds me more of Lemieux just with his sheer size and talent, and McKinnon reminds me more of Gretzky with his smarts. And smarts beat talent in this series. McKinnon was far and away better than McDavid in every single game. And that's why his team is in the finals and why McDavid's isn't. And it's the same thing we've been saying about Edmonton for how many years? You have McDavid, you have Draisaitl, two of the top 5 players in the world. There is no debating that. But you start getting past those two. You start looking at the depth. You start looking at your defensemen. You start looking at your goaltending. And you start scratching your head. And, you had picked Calgary to beat Edmonton. I had picked Edmonton to beat Calgary. But I'll tell you what, had it been Calgary in this Western Conference final and not Edmonton, I think we might have had a little bit of a longer series. And I just want to say one more thing before I go. That thing that you mentioned with Gallant and Kakko, I didn't agree with it either. But from the interviews coming out, because I was worried about it after the game, from the interviews coming out from breakup day and the like, it seems as if it's water under the bridge. So I'm not going to let it worry me until it worries me again.
Yeah, I get that. Can we also just talk about, just like offhand, how the Athletic basically threw shade at the Edmonton? So the tail of the tape here, Evander Kane for the Edmonton Oilers. Noted money guru at Evander Kane, money connoisseur, if you will. He got suspended for one game in this series, and he got suspended after game 3, so he was going to be suspended for game 4. But because Edmonton was down 3 games to none, the Athletic said underneath Evander Kane's suspension, the forward will be out the remainder of the Western Conference final. They already assumed that they were getting knocked out.
I'm sure that was a typo on their part.
I know it was a typo.
I'm sure it meant no disrespect to the Oilers, although maybe the Oilers need some disrespect because I'm not going to go into it. I just said it. I'm not going to say it again.
Yeah, exactly. I know it was probably a Freudian slip by somebody at the Athletic, but I found it amusing. I remember reading that and I was thinking, that must have been a mistake. A funny mistake, albeit. But in Edmonton's case, I mean, just to kind of talk about this, they have a great forward core. They honestly do. They have one of the best forward cores in the entire NHL, and it's led by 2 of the top players in the entire NHL, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, as Tom had mentioned. Evander Kane put in a ton of work in the series before getting suspended, and even Jesse Puljujarvi, who could very well be on the way out of Edmonton. And I'll be really interested to see who could be takers in the Jesse Puljujarvi sweepstakes, because guys, a 6'4", bulldozer of a forward who can also score. That's a guy that's very much needed. Some things to note for Edmonton. I really want to see them address goaltending in this offseason, and they need to do anything it takes to do that. And I think they will try to do anything it takes to do that. Look for them to try to make it, some kind of savvy trade, or maybe even sign a goaltender on the goaltending carousel that is free agency. They'll try to make a play at somebody in free agency. I'm willing to bet Mike Smith is only getting older, and he really showed it in the Western Conference final. Mikko Koskinen also just signed a deal to play in, I think, Europe or Russia, I can't remember exactly where. But yeah, he could be on his way out as well. So needless to say, Edmonton needs goaltending, and they have needed goaltending. Defense looked sluggish as well. Duncan Keith showed his age, didn't play bad by any means, but he also could be an interesting player to watch as we enter July as a potential buyout. And the reason why that's advantageous for Edmonton, they don't absorb a cap hit for buying out Duncan Keith. Chicago absorbs that. So Edmonton might actually benefit from buying out Duncan Keith because it doesn't affect their cap and they have more money to work with in free agency and in trades. They're going to be a really interesting team to watch in the offseason to see how they try to upgrade, because this team, you give them goaltending, you give them a slightly better defense, even a slightly better goaltender. This is a team that could easily contend for the Stanley Cup. Easily. 100%. And I agree with Tom that if we had seen Calgary move on to the Western Conference final, I think they would have ultimately given Colorado a bigger challenge. And I think that Colorado still was probably going to come out on the other end. I did have in a couple brackets Calgary coming out of the Western Conference just because I believe that heavily in Calgary. Why, I don't know. But I mean, I do know because they're actually a really good team. But it's the way the cookie crumbled. Edmonton needs to go back to the drawing board. They're going to have a lot of things to think about this summer. But Colorado looked dominant. And now with that being said, we're finally here. It's time to finally preview the Stanley Cup Finals. And it's been a long road. I remember when we started our team previews all the way back in August of last year. And who knows, we could be doing that again coming up soon in the summertime as we wind down on free agency and get past the draft and get past retirees and stuff like that. But it's been a long road. And it's really interesting to see where we are now. We could reflect the week after the Stanley Cup is hoisted. But we're here now. It's the Colorado Avalanche versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. And there's a lot to unpack with this. There's a lot to kind of talk about. There's a lot of even play on both sides. So, Tom, for you, what are some keys to victory for Colorado? What are some keys to victory for Tampa Bay? And overall, general thoughts leading into the first game of the Stanley Cup Finals.
Well, Colorado is just their speed. The thing with Tampa is they have a lot of their star power on their top two lines, but their bottom two lines like to muck and grind it up. They like to take away the space on the ice. They like to trap the neutral zone. It's kind of like the way your Devils used to play way back when in their heyday. Well, their bottom two lines, their top two lines, they play pretty much run and gun hockey. The thing with Colorado is all four of their lines are pretty quick. So Colorado's speed is going to be huge for them in this series. They're going to need that speed to break by Tampa. Tampa's a little bit of an older team in comparison to them. The third and fourth lines of Colorado, in order to win this, they're going to need to outplay Tampa's third and fourth lines. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. They say defense wins championships, and I guess that could be a saying for any sport, really. But in today's game, in today's NHL, in the flat, hard cap era, depth is what wins championships. And I mean, you could even probably have said that way back in the 90s and the like, you need that ugly goal or that unexpected goal from your third and fourth liner or from your second or third pair defenseman. But depth is going to be huge for Colorado this series. Their depth guys need to outplay Tampa's depth guys if they want to win. Also, the stars are going to need to show up. Now you're looking across at Tampa. You have Stamkos, who's won 2 in a row, and maybe is having his best playoff of the last 3 years, of the last 3 runs the Lightning went on. You have Kucherov, who knows how to do this. Nathan McKinnon's going to need to go out there and not be intimidated. He's going to not need to be what Wayne Gretzky was to Brian Trottier and Mike Bossy in 1983. McKinnon's going to need to go out there and grab the bull by the horns. He can't, they can't use this excuse, well, it's his first finals. He's never been this far. If they want to go anywhere, it's going to be paramount for him to do anything. And I'm going to say the same thing with Cale Makar in respect with Victor Hedman. It can't be, Cale Makar cannot be the 1983 version of Paul Coffey on the Oilers, while Victor Hedman is the 1983 version of Dennis Potvin on the Islanders. Cale Makar is showing how great of a defenseman he is. Wayne Gretzky said to him that he's the best defenseman he's seen since Bobby Orr. Well, he's going to need to go out there and prove it. He's going to need to go out there and outplay a guy like Victor Hedman. He's going to need to stop guys like Stamkos and like Kucherov. And if Braden Point comes back, Braden Point. Those two guys, they're 2 of the best players right now in the NHL, McKinnon and Makar, bar none. You're going to need those guys to be at their best. But at the same time, you're going to need guys like Arturi Lankinen, Mikko Rantanen, Gabriel Landeskog, depth players. I think that Colorado's depth players, if you look at them, are maybe a little bit better than Tampa's at this point, especially guys on your second and third lines, that aren't stars. Well, I mean, these guys are stars, but not superstars is what I'm saying. I think that those guys have a little bit of a nod over Tampa's, and that's what they're going to need to beat Tampa. Another thing that Colorado's going to need to do, they're going to need to use the home ice advantage. And what I mean by home ice advantage is not, the crowd or something crazy that they do. It's just the natural environment of Denver, Colorado. The air's a little bit thinner. Tampa's not, the air's a little bit thinner. The travel's a little more. Colorado's been traveling all playoffs. They had to travel out to Nashville 2 time zones away for round 1. For round 2, they had to travel to St. Louis, which is also 2 time zones away. For round 3, they had to go to Edmonton, which is a whole nother country away in another time zone. Colorado's been traveling, and it doesn't seem to have phased them as much. Tampa, I'll tell you what, Obviously, in 2020, we had a bubble. Last year, who did they play? Florida, Carolina, Islanders, and Montreal. They never even left the Eastern time zone last year in the playoffs. Now Tampa's got to travel, and they got to go out to Colorado where the air's a little bit thinner, and where players have said, you go out there where you're not used to going there, it becomes difficult to breathe when you first get there. So Colorado needs to use that to their advantage. They need to win the home games in Colorado, and they maybe need to steal a road game in Tampa if it comes down to that as well. But those are the factors for Colorado. If I turn over to Tampa, what Tampa has, the first thing they have, which is obvious, and everybody knows this, and you're going to read my mind right now. What am I going to say? Goaltending. Tampa has goaltending, and they have arguably the best goalie in the world. Him and Igor Shesterkin are debatable right now for who's number one. You have Vasilevsky, Vezina Trophy winner, back-to-back Stanley Cup winner, won the Conn Smythe last year, could potentially win it again this year. And it might be, I think it's going to be if he does win it this year, it'll be the first time a goalie's ever won it in back-to-back years. You have Vasilevsky. He's your rock back there. That's your guy. Another thing that Tampa has a little bit of depth is they have Ryan McDonagh on their second pair defense. Colorado doesn't even have a guy like McDonagh. McDonagh has a wealth of experience. The whole roster has a wealth of experience. They know how to do this. And I hate to sound like a broken record here, but it's just so kind of fitting. And Steve Koulias on the NHL Network on Sirius and XM, he says it has the same makings of the 1983 final between the Oilers and the Islanders, whereas the Islanders were three-time champions and the Oilers were this young and upcoming team that everybody thought was going to be the next dynasty in the league. And the experience for Tampa is going to be key for them. Obviously you're traveling a little bit more. Obviously you're playing in the thinner air. Obviously you're playing against a team right now in a Stanley Cup final that you have not seen in the last two finals. Because what Tampa did in the last two playoffs, they got their adversity out in the early rounds, and then when they got to the finals, that was the easy part for them. I mean, come on. Dallas gave them a little bit of a series, don't get me wrong, but I think everybody thought they were going to beat Dallas. Montreal last year, come on. I mean, it was a given they were going to beat Montreal. I don't think anybody thought the Habs were going to pull a miracle off. But the experience is what Tampa needs. They need that experience to beat Colorado. The pretty much, we've been here before, let's get it done. Like the Islanders in 83. And I'll give you an even better example. I'll give you somebody recent times. Chicago Blackhawks in 2015. Kind of the same trajectory as what Tampa did. Finished third in their division, and just marched through those playoffs, just went through everybody, and these same Tampa Bay Lightning had a 2-1 series lead on those Blackhawks. And I remember myself and a few of my friends thinking, this is the end of the Blackhawks. Tampa's going to take a cup here. And Chicago came back and won 3 games with ease. And that's what Tampa's going to need to do. If they back themselves into a situation, they're going to need to rely on their experience to get them out of it, as well as the goaltending. So that's what Tampa's going to need, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I did a little bit of digging because I wanted to dive down the rabbit hole on your thought on the Conn Smythe Trophy. There was one goaltender who has won back-to-back Conn Smythes.
Was it? No, I was going to – no.
Come on. I know what your gut was about to say. Say it.
I'm not going to say it because I know it's not true. Maybe it is true.
Who?
Did he play for the Philadelphia Flyers in the 1970s?
Oh, I bet you he did.
Bernie Perron. You want to know what? I had Reggie Leach in there, but you want to know why? Reggie Leach did win the Conn Smythe Trophy in a losing effort to the Montreal Canadiens in 1976. 4-game. I can never figure that one out. The Habs swept the Flyers in 4 straight and 76 finals, and Reggie Leach wins the Conn Smythe Trophy. At least when Jaguar won it in 03, and Reggie Leach was a forward, by the way. I think the only non-goalie to ever win it in a losing effort. But in 03,
he shouldn't have won it.
in 03, when Jaguar lost it, I mean, he lost the cup. He won it against the Devils. The Ducks pushed the Devils to 7 games. In 87, when Ron Hextall won it for those same Philadelphia Flyers, they pushed Wayne Gretzky and the Oilers to 7 games. Somebody who is a Flyer fan or who was around in the 70s, please chime in and comment. I want to know why that happened. Because to this day, I look at it and I still can't figure it out. But I digress. Let's go back. That actually is a very good point. I got the Reggie Leach one mixed up.
Yeah. So Bernie Perron won back-to-back Conn Smythe trophies. And then ironically, the person who has won the most Conn Smythe trophies is ironically a goaltender, actually. And, has worn the same crest that I'm
that's
currently
given.
wearing.
Everybody
Patrick
knows
Waugh.
that one. Everybody
Patrick Waugh has won 3 Conn Smites. So goaltenders are just, good choices for the Conn Smythe Trophy. It could happen for Andrei Vasilevsky, and he would be the first goaltender since Bernie Parent in 74-75 to win back-to-back Conn Smythe trophies as a goaltender. The last time that somebody won back-to-back Conn Smythe trophies was actually not too long ago. It was Sidney Crosby with the Pittsburgh Penguins in 16 and 17, which was the first time that we saw back-to-backs since Mario Lemieux, ironically, in 91-92. Mm-hmm. So funny how that kind of stuff works out. Hockey is a funny sport in that regard. But anyway, I digress. Back to my thoughts on the tales of the tape here. And Tom, you hit the nail on the head here. It's all about, for Colorado, speed. And for them, speed kills. And they have an astounding forward core. I just want to read off some stats for you here. First of all, their leading point getter right now in the playoffs is not even a forward. It's Cale Makar. Mm-hmm. And I agree here with Wayne Gretzky's assessment. I don't know if it's fair to say that he's the best defenseman since Bobby Orr. But goddamn, is it fun to watch him play hockey? It really is. He is an absolute joy to watch on the ice. And his speed, his hands, his defense has really come around as well. He can play both sides of the ice seamlessly, and he makes a big difference playing the point on the power play. He makes a big difference at the point, even in 5-on-5 play, and it's paid dividends. In 14 games, he's got 22 points. He's a plus 11 in this series as well, and he's averaging over 27 minutes a night. And it's not even close to his defensive partner, Devin Taves, who is averaging about 25 and a half minutes a night. Both have been fantastic in the playoffs. Both have been a very good pair for the Colorado Avalanche. Other than that, Nathan MacKinnon hasn't been a slouch either. 11 goals in 14 games, 18 points total as well. And then you also have the rest of his line mates following in suit, Gabriel Landeskog and Mikko Rantanen following in with 17 points apiece.
They actually haven't been playing together, believe it or not. They've had Nichushkin playing with that line.
Oh, yeah, true. And Nichushkin has actually been really, really effective in the playoffs as well, and really does a really good job getting under people's skin.
Actually makes sense. You don't want to be the 07 Ottawa Senators.
No, you do not, and that's true. The one thing that could potentially hurt the Colorado Avalanche, Nazem Kadri, he's still out. And he's more than likely going to be out for the Stanley Cup final as well, which is a massive blow.
I'm not so sure about that. What I'm hearing, they're saying he may be ready to go for game 3, but they said the first 2 games in Colorado, probably not. They said, but by the time they get down to Tampa, they said he might be able to go.
And it would be awesome if he could, but you're definitely not getting 100% Nazem Kadri at that point. You know you're getting a 70 to 75% guy. And look, having him in the lineup is better than not having him in the lineup, and it shows. 14 points in 13 games. He's averaging over a point per game for the Colorado Avalanche. It's a big blow for him not to be in the lineup right now, and that's going to hurt. The other question mark, Darcy Kemper. Is he ready to go? Is he really ready to go? Or is Pavel Francouz going to have to pick up the pieces here as well? And that is going to be a potential fall for the Colorado Avalanche, is not inconsistency in that. I don't think that's fair to say. I don't think it's fair to say that it's inconsistency or anything like that, but this is a team, they let in goals sometimes. They give up 5 goals sometimes. They let up 6 goals. They let up 8 goals sometimes. This is a team that really relies on their forward and defense to really pick up the pieces and just pump goals into the opposing net and just really make sure that they win the game, in the sense that sometimes you have an 8-6 game. Sometimes you have a 6-5 game. Sometimes you have a 7-5 game. They really need to be dominant on the opposing side of the ice if they're going to have any chance of winning. And I think they do have, honestly, a good chance. Colorado has a lot to think about in the offseason, though. This is going to be a team that's going to be playing with a lot of heart. This is a team that, believe it or not, we could be seeing their window closing much sooner than a lot of people actually realize here. I don't think a lot of people actually realize, but Arturi Lekkinen, restricted free agent. Yeah, doesn't hurt. Andre Burakovsky, unrestricted free agent after this year. Darren Helm, unrestricted free agent. Nazem Kadri, unrestricted free agent. Valerie Nichushkin, unrestricted free agent. On the defensive side, Josh Manson, who admittedly is a rental, unrestricted free agent. And Darcy Kemper, unrestricted free agent. You have a lot to solve here in the postseason, especially if you don't win the cup here.
Mhm.
And even bigger than that next year, the biggest name that is an unrestricted free agent for the Colorado Avalanche, Nathan MacKinnon.
I doubt he walks, though.
I doubt he walks. Highly doubt it. But it also means you're going to have to pay him the money that he deserves, which also means that you're going to have less to spend on key players for this year and for next year and for years to follow.
May I digress? They still have one of the better prospect pools out there. And Joe
Absolutely,
Sakic,
they do.
he knows how to find young players.
Absolutely. I'm not knocking that whatsoever. But they've also dipped into that over the past year and a half to acquire some of who they have now. They used it with Josh Manson. They used it with Darcy Kemper when they traded away Connor Timmins. So, a prospect pool is great when you keep them around to let them develop. And Colorado has slowly but surely been letting those pieces go in trades. So, needless to say, Colorado is going to be playing with some urgency in this Stanley Cup final because they know that their window could very well be shorter than a lot of people realize. Tampa Bay side of things, Tom, hit the nail on the head again. What's the key to success here for the Tampa Bay Lightning? Having the best goaltender in the entire league, as always. Andrei Vasilevsky in the playoffs has been an absolute rock. In 17 starts, he is 12-5 with a .928 save percentage and a 2.27 goals against average. He has been stellar. On the flip side of things, Nikita Kucherov is your leading point getter currently for the Tampa Bay Lightning. 23 points in 17 games, a couple more games than the Colorado Avalanche, but hey, they had to carry into 6 games rather than 4 games for Colorado. But he's certainly played very, very well. Interesting to note here, the Tampa Bay Lightning don't have any players on their team that have cracked the 10-goal mark. The closest to that right now is Steven Stamkos with 9 goals in 17 games. I don't think that that's a down note here for the Tampa Bay Lightning, but it is interesting to note. Now, one thing to kind of compare between the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning, Colorado is better at putting the puck in the net. Colorado collectively as a team has scored 65 goals in 14 games as a team. Tampa Bay in 17 games has scored 52 goals. So Tampa Bay is going to need to pick up the pieces if they want to be able to beat the Colorado Avalanche on the scoreboard. It will be interesting to see how Colorado faces off against Andrei Vasilevsky, who could be one of their biggest tests in goal leading to that Stanley Cup that they want to hoist so much. A player that's going to be interesting to watch for Tampa Bay in the Stanley Cup final, Andre Palat. And I say that not just because he has 16 points in 17 games. I say that also because he's an unrestricted free agent after this year. And he is certainly one of the top free agents coming into the offseason. And I know he's going to want to try to impress anybody who is going to want to hire him for his services once he is an unrestricted free agent. It's no secret, Tampa Bay probably does not have the money for him. And they would have to move around something significant to make room for him. Quite frankly, I don't know if they're going to be willing to do that. The only way that makes it work to try to re-sign him or try to do anything is if they ditch one of their forwards, such as Ross Colton, maybe Brandon Hagel. And even then, probably the only expendable piece is Ross Colton. But after he's played in this playoffs and how well he has done with 8 points in 17 games, I don't know if Tampa Bay is going to be that inclined to go and trade him just so that way you can re-sign Andre Palat. Likewise, on defense, you could also be losing Jan Ruta after this year as well. So that's going to be interesting to note here too.
Progressive league, like I always say.
Yeah. Tampa Bay.
You gotta put young legs in where you can get them.
Yeah. For Tampa Bay, this would just be a cherry on top for them. And, they've won the past 2 Stanley Cups. They could very well win a 3rd Stanley Cup here. We haven't seen a team win more than 2 Stanley Cups in a row since, I believe,
I already know
Edmonton.
this. No. Edmonton never won 3 in a row. Islanders.
So since the Islanders.
1982 is when they won 3 in a row. Edmonton had a chance at 3 in a row. That was the infamous Steve Smith where he banked it into a Grant Fuhr's skate against Calgary.
I thought the Islanders were 4 in a row, actually.
Islanders won 4 in a row, but you have to win 3 in a row to win 4 in a row, don't you?
Fair point. Anyway.
Yeah, Oilers never won 3 in a row. They came close in 86, but they blew it to Calgary in the second round that year.
Hey, I'm a music teacher. I can only count to 4. Anyway. But I say these different things of unrestricted free agent because it does play an element in the Stanley Cup final. You have some players that are playing for a contract next year. You have players that want to impress for potential suitors that want to, sign these players, even if it's not re-signing with the team that they're currently with. So it's going to be interesting to watch for Colorado. It's going to be interesting to watch for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay needs to score and score early. The big thing I want to mention with Tampa Bay here is I wouldn't be surprised if they go down 2-0 against Colorado, but I don't want to hear anybody saying, oh, Colorado's got this. Colorado sweep, Colorado sweep, Colorado sweep.
Nope.
Historically, with John Cooper teams that have been, the Tampa Bay Lightning, he has readjusted after every game too. If he ever goes down 2 games, he puts the pedal to the metal, readjusts, figure out exactly what the team needs to do to readjust, and then he just steps on throats. He did that with the Rangers. He could very well do it with Colorado. Don't question the Tampa Bay Lightning. Don't question this coaching staff. Tampa Bay Lightning's coaching staff is among the best in the entire league, and especially because they've won 2 Stanley Cups. This is going to be the biggest test for the Tampa Bay Lightning since their run of Stanley Cups. Look at the past 2 years. Last year, they beat the Montreal Canadiens. Admittedly, not too difficult of a matchup. 2 years ago, they beat the Dallas Stars. Admittedly, a little bit more difficult. But now you're facing the Colorado Avalanche. You're finally facing the Colorado Avalanche. The same Colorado Avalanche that should have been there 2 years ago and last year. So let's see what Colorado does with this. I'm going to be here to watch all of that, and it's going to be a ton of fun to watch. And obviously, as we've always stated, we want to hear from you guys down below because we want you guys to join the conversation, and especially because we want you to join the conversation like this. It's our question of the day, and I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, I think you should be able to figure out what the question of the day here is. It's time for final predictions. Tom, who's your Stanley Cup winner?
Well, before I do that, I have a message for our friend Stack over at the Frozen 4 podcast. The last team to win a pure 3 in a row, and then that's it, were his Toronto Maple Leafs back in the 60s, 62, 63, 64. Last team to just win 3 in a row. They didn't win a 4th, just a straight 3 in a row. The Leafs were the originators. They were the first ever team to win 3 in a row in the 40s. They were the originators of 3 in a row.
Yeah. And shout out to our guys over at the Frozen 4 pod. And hopefully we get to do something with you guys over the summer. Just shout out to you guys in general.
Mm-hmm. That just popped in my head when we were talking about the Islanders. That's why.
Yeah. So that being said, final predictions.
All right. You know what, man? I'm going to tell you what right now. This one could go either way. This is very, very close to call. I am a Ranger fan, yes. But I'm not sitting here hating on the Lightning like I wasn't. I wasn't really even hating on them in 2015, although I did openly root for Chicago. I just want, I watched it, but it wasn't like if the Lightning win, it's not going to end my life. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like Devils Kings in 2012 that I refused to watch. Or, it's like it's the same thing back in 2013. The Bruins beat the Rangers on their way to the finals, but I wanted a good final between them and the Blackhawks. I wasn't like, the hell with the Boston Bruins. I hope they lose in 4 straight. I wanted a good final. They were 2 good teams, So this could go either way. But you want to know what? I'm going to go Avs in 6. I'm going to trust my judgment. I'm going to go Avs in 6. But if Tampa takes 3 of the first, 4 or 5, this series could easily go to Bolt's way. It could easily go to Bolt's way. If Tampa goes up 3-1 or 3-2, I'm just not so sure that the Avs would have it in them to come back and win 3 in a row or have to win 2 in a row. If this is going to get to a point where the Avs are going to have to win multiple games in a row to take this series, I'm going to start liking Tampa better. If, the Avs can keep Tampa at bay and, not let them win multiple games, go ahead 2-1 or go ahead, 3-1 or the like, I think it's the Avs series to take. So, yes, I'm going to be conservative here with it. I'm going Avs in 6. Conn Smythe, Cale Makar.
So, look, I'm wearing a Colorado Avalanche jersey. I'm rooting for the Colorado Avalanche in this series in general. But I know that if I predict the Colorado Avalanche to win, they're not going to. My track record is terrible when it comes to predictions. I think you guys should realize that by now. I jinx teams left and right. So that being said, Tom's right. It could go easily either which way. Either way, I think we need to buckle up because this could very well be a long series. And if it is, I am all here for that. And it's going to be a ton of fun to watch. And it's also going to be sad to not watch hockey after this and just twiddle our thumbs until the NHL draft. But it is what it is.
Yeah, World Juniors in August.
Woo! So I can't wait for that too. But I'm going to conservatively say the Tampa Bay Lightning in 7, just simply because Andrei Vasilevsky could be the difference maker, which also segues into who I think could be the Conn Smythe winner. It could very well actually be Andrei Vasilevsky. And if it's not Andrei Vasilevsky, if for some reason he does not win the Conn Smythe, my honorable mention for that would be Steven Stamkos, especially if he goes off in this series. And he could very well have himself a series, especially being 100% this year. But as always, guys, what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with our takes? Let us know down below. Drop a comment. And while you're there, maybe even say hi. Drop a like as well. And if you're not subscribed, because you might not be, subscribe, hit the bell so that we know when we're going live and when we're going to be coming at you with some Stanley Cup updates along the way. And we're going to be here along the way with you guys. But if you're not here on YouTube, here's our YouTube link, youtube.com/i80sports. You can check us out there. And you can also check out our back catalog of predictions. Laugh at all of my terrible predictions throughout the year and go back into our team previews and see exactly how we got here to this day. It could be actually kind of fun. Go back, look at that Colorado video. Go back and look at that Tampa Bay video. You might find something surprising in there. While you are also here, make sure you check out our content at i80sports.com. You can check out all of our coverage based on the NHL, MLS, NFL, NCAA football, NBA. Check out the NBA guys for the NBA finals coverage and also our wrestling content. While you're on our website, check out our shop. Get yourself a t-shirt as low as $8. And if you're on Twitter and you don't currently follow us, drop a follow down below at i80_sports NHL. And if you follow us already, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. And just like that, it's time to watch Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. It could be possible that this video is up after Game 1 is done. And if that's the case, well, hope you guys enjoyed. And we'll join you along for the ride. But for now, it's time to watch the Stanley Cup Final. I'm excited. I hope you guys are hyped too. I'm Brian. He's Tom. This has been our Stanley Cup preview with the NHL guys on i80 Sports.